Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Welcome to the Henry Hussey Coaching YouTube channel and podcast, where we discuss everything physique and lifestyle related, as well as the science of getting jacked.
Hello and welcome, guys. This time I'm the host. If you don't know who I am, that's absolutely fine. I'm only here to interview one particular guy. Sitting on the other side, it is your host, the one and only Henry Hussey. So, hey Henry, how are you doing, my mate?
Hello. I'm actually pretty good today in comparison to what I've been recently, as we've just been discussing off screen. I'm good. Feeling pretty fresh today. I got a good night's sleep last night. I got to eat a lot of food this morning for breakfast. And
but you're on a contest prep right now, right? Because it doesn't sound like it. With having good sleep, eating lots, feeling good.
Yeah. Well, as we mentioned off screen, I've went through a lot of things in the last 16 weeks, and I'm pretty much ready for what I want to bring to this stage now. So I'm eating into the show. I've taken my calorie intake and I've increased it by essentially on average of a week. So by average of the week, I mean I've taken my calories, put them high days, medium days, low days, and now I'm eating 2,400 a day across the week. Although my high days are like 3,000 calories, my low days are 2,150, and my moderate days are 2,400. So,
So you touched on a really interesting point. And before we dive into all the nutritional aspects, perhaps give us a brief overview of what has happened over the past 16 weeks, where you started, what kind of adjustments you did in regards to training, nutrition, and lifestyle changes and stuff like that.
Right. Well, that's a huge one. Well, I started out, I believe I was 86, 187 pounds. At 16 weeks out, I was planning to be 170, 168, which is, I believe, when we did our first interview together, me, you, and Steve, that's what I originally estimated to be at. Because my stage weight for my last year, at the end of my depletion, was 172. So I said, I've put on a little bit of muscle. I wasn't lean enough last year. So let's make an estimate towards what I need to be. So I put it at a couple pounds lighter, plus the muscle mass. So I planned it for 16 pounds. A pound a week is pretty legitimate, what everyone kind of aims for to be at a good, safe place. As for training style, I basically just did 3 mesocycles. I'm in my last one right now. Very, very linear style training. I really like where I'm coaching myself. I didn't want to get anything too complicated. I just wanted to the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. So I could just basically watch, monitor, keep the volumes there, increase sets per week over a 4-week overload, and then 1 week deload. So yeah, that was pretty much how I structured that. My food, starting out, I was eating like 3,000 calories a day, losing about 1.5 pounds a week, and, just cut it down slowly, really, really over time. At 10 weeks out, I took a week-long diet break. It was really nice because the hunger started to get a little bad. I said, I still have 10 weeks to go. So at week 10, I took a diet break, ate 3,200 calories a day. My weight did go up, but that was kind of be expected, just because, glycogen, I wasn't having a whole lot of salt, so you're going to get some water compensation, etc. But at the end of the next week, my weight was down 1 pound from where the previous week started. So I was like, whatever. So many people see that weight go up and they're like, ah!
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They start
get
freaking
stressed out.
And I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a minute as well.
Sure.
But, there was a lot of issues I faced over the period. Not only hunger. Hunger was probably one of the minimalist things up until the last couple of weeks. Even though I was dieting now for, 12, 13 weeks, pretty much. But besides all that, I've had a lot of other outside things going on. I have my coaching business as well that I work on during the mornings.
Awesome.
I've been renovating my entire house. So for the last 8 weeks, I redid my entire basement apartment. I redid my upstairs apartment with flooring. I also did like painting, electrical, plumbing, you name it, I did it.
Was it? Sorry to interrupt you there, because it interests me right now already. Was it on purpose that you scheduled all these kind of things in that time frame right before your contest to increase the need or to kind of counterbalance the negative adaptations of a contest prep?
Do you know what? That thought did cross my mind. It wasn't the original reason, but it has been extremely, extremely helpful in keeping me focused, as well as keeping me active, like hauling wood back and forth, or flooring, or just doing things instead of sitting down and I would either play like video games or something to waste an hour just to keep my mind off something so I wouldn't eat. But by doing this, I'm actually challenging myself in certain ways, because I've never laid flooring before. This is the first time for me. I've never done molding. I've never done a lot of this stuff. So
hate to say it, but neither did I.
Yeah, right. But it's a challenge that I had to learn, and it's rewarding. So outside of the contest prep, outside of everything, it was kind of like a plus on top of things. So I'd be focused. I'd get into the cardio in the morning. I'd do my training in the morning as well. And then I'd come home, and instead of being sat down and being hungry, I would just have a coffee, and then I'd go work. Right? I just tack away at this thing, and it actually really, really helped, because for me personally, where I do the home renos in the day, and then I work a full-time job in the evenings as well. So I work from 4 to maybe 11 or 12 between that time. And then I get off work, go home, and I basically go immediately to sleep, which is, I try to explain this to people that work 9 to 5 jobs. So it's can you imagine if you went to work at 9, you were already up, worked on your own business, and then you also had gone to the gym, and you renovated your house, and when you got off work at 5 o'clock, you went directly to bed to wake up at 12:45 a.m. So people are like, what? Right? It's, it was kind of a crazy, but it kept me super active. But by doing this, I found I was most hungry at night. And this, unfortunately, was when I was working at the restaurant. Because, as we've mentioned before, and I've talked about it before on my other podcasts, that, there's 17 stairs between where the restaurant kitchen is here and where the first floor is here, where all the dining room is. And we do small plates. So there's a lot of food going up and down all the time. So I'm running up and down the stairs frantically all night, but that caused me to get so hungry. So I basically broke my meals up this way, because, the calories is king when it comes to the deficit. We all know this. Absolutely, it's been shown a million times. And timing has this much of an effect, especially during a fat loss phase, muscle retention, all that stuff. It's as long as you get the calories, as long as you get your amount of protein you need, and as long as you're keeping the volume high and intensities high, it's what's best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Totally agree. So
as we're going through this, I said, what's the best for me? Well, the best for me would be to wake up, have a decent sized breakfast. Consume a fair amount of my calories at breakfast. And then after that, what I would do was I'd basically fast. I'd get up at 7, have breakfast with my significant other at 7:30 after I cook it. And then she goes to work and I'd go to the gym. So me being able to consume some carbohydrates, get that protein, get some fats in, and that's my breakfast, and go to the gym and feel full. Do my training, and then after I was finished training, I would basically fast from that 7:30 in the morning period until about 5 o'clock. Because what would happen was I'd leave myself with 4 or 5 meals, or a couple of meals plus snacks during the work period. That's I'm always around food. And I think this is the reason that it caused me to be so hungry, because the restaurant I work at is amazing. The food is fantastic. And these are all things that I really, really like. So me visually seeing this and smelling it and like having it constantly is kind of like a little bit of a form of torture.
Especially when you're in a starved mode.
Exactly. And it's really funny. This is a reference that Mike used before about like cheat meals during diets, right? He's like the CIA, in Guantanamo Bay. What they do is like they'd give you a nice hot meal and they'd give it to you and then they'd take it away, right? And you keep doing that, but it made things a little bit more hard because your body is and mind is very food focused already at this period of time that. It just makes it even more hyper-focused, right? So I found I was getting very hungry during these times. I just start salivating at the thought of food, and that's a sign that you're hungry. So I'd save basically 3/4 of my calories for that 6-hour period, and then I'd save one big dose before bed. Steve is fairly popular for this as well. He was like, have a nice hot meal or something later in the evening. Like I saved oatmeal basically with some cocoa powder and just a little bit of butter and cinnamon. Just basically, I looked forward to it. So I knew that was home. I knew it was coming every night. I'd eat my salads. And then I'd have that, I got home and I'd be like, oh, this is so good. And that would actually help me relax. Which is really cool too, because a little bit of stress during the evening. You're exercising basically for me, like doing cardio, and you have that on edgeness when you're hungry. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. It's almost like you have a level of irritability if you're a little hungry, which isn't the best. So
being hangry.
Yeah, hangry basically. So when I got home and I had these like hot cocoa oats with either a little tiny bit of peanut butter or like normal butter and cinnamon. That was like a little piece of heaven that allowed me to just which helped me sleep, which was amazing because I never did that before. And as I mentioned, Steve was mentioned doing something like this, and AJ's talked about it as well. And I started to adopt it, and I was like, wow, this has made a huge difference, which is really good because sleep is so important just in general. Like it's rest, recovery, training, and diet. And those are the pillars, right? If one gets out of focus, then they all kind of blur a little bit, right? But as you were saying,
I absolutely feel in regards to having some kind of meal right before bedtime. And when I was going through my contest prep diet, I was constantly waking up in the middle of the night, had some terrible sleep. And I try to take care of it in many regards. Try to optimize my sleep hygiene with lighting, with earplugs, with melatonin and all that kind of stuff. But the only thing that really helped was me having some kind of meal right before bedtime. A high protein, high carbohydrate meal, which then releases tryptophan in your body. And then I could sleep like a baby throughout the night without getting up, without feeling hungry in the middle of the night, because that happened so often, right? And it's once again, like you said, sleep is so important, especially for a successful fat loss journey. And this is something so many people don't really take care of. Mm-hmm. They focus on the minute details, try to do something like intermittent fasting or anything like that, but don't have their sleep, the fundamental thing, down, right? And they could optimize everything else perhaps when they take care of their sleep environment, or sleep in general.
I agree completely. Like I said, it's one of the 3 pillars, and it's you need to nail this. And as it's so funny because I find certain people do through peak weeks and stuff is I have a lot of friends that are training for this, and they're getting trained, and their coaches are like, go, 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 harder, harder, harder. Their sleep is going out the window. They feel like garbage all the time. And their coaches are saying do more, eat less, do more, eat less. And as we were talking earlier, and I'm going to get into this shortly, this causes issues, huge issues. And in fact, we talked about it off screen, and it's probably a good time for me to bring it up now about my cracking period of a couple of days, The, what was it? I was talking to Jared Feather, as I mentioned. Jared's helping me with my peak week, and I've been just chatting back and forth with him basically since 8 weeks out. At the point of week, I think it was 6 and 5 weeks out, I basically went down to 172 pounds at the lowest, and then I basically was still dieting, still doing the cardio, still doing everything I was doing before, but my weight started to go up. And I was like, whoa. Like, it's a physical impossibility to be losing 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds a week, or whatever weight you're losing, 1 pound, and then just 1 week later for this to completely stop. Because, if I was creating a 3,500 calorie deficit over the period of a week, your body doesn't adapt that quickly, right?
Absolutely.
So, it might drop an extra 10%, but that's 350 calories. Your weight loss is still occurring. So I just kept going. And the second week then, I was like, all right, something's stalling. Like, I'm just going to add a little bit more cardio, nothing crazy, low intensity. And I'm also going to just drop my calories. I think it was like by 100. Nothing too
By the way,
crazy
what did you
either.
do for cardio then?
Basically,
do
the only thing I do is walk on an incline of 10 on the machine, and I do it at a brisk pace of I think it's like 2.7. So it's enough to break a sweat after 15, 20 minutes, but not enough to make my legs sore or anything like that. Since I do work in the restaurant, I didn't want to tax myself too much, right? Like a little bit of moderate cardio, or like 100% stay away from anything high intensity because it just kills me. In fact, at one point during prep, I actually started to use the Stairmaster. And I was like, oh, this is yeah, right. Well, I was just doing a very slow pace. In fact, I was burning weight slower on the Stairmaster than I was on the treadmill walking. So I was like, yeah, whatever. So I just did it. And 2 days later, my volume and intensity dropped by 25% on my calves. No joke. Because my body wasn't used to doing it. And my calves are pretty big and strong. I'm genetically predisposed to having good calves. And I used to barely do them.
Team calves, then.
Right? Yo, geez, it's crazy because right now I have separation in the front of my calves, and the veins can come. They just wrap the whole way around, and I've never seen it before because I had nothing to this lean. But I'm like, I always get it on the sides, but now I got it in the front, and I'm like, this is weird looking, really weird. But
and people start admiring now on the other end.
Right. Exactly. So when my volume dropped on my calves, I was like, I probably shouldn't be doing this. I'm probably putting too much stress on my calves through not only training. So if I can lose calories and keep my volumes higher in my training, that just equals, better muscle retention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm also asking about your cardio simply because it sounds like you were overly active.
Yeah.
So many people, it's... With some of my clients or other people I see training, it is that they, for them, it's hard to actually get 8K steps in a day or something like that, right? And when listening to you with doing construction work at home, building your own business, doing cardio, doing your regular training, then at nighttime, doing your job at a restaurant, being super active there. It sounds to me like you're overly active, actually.
And do you know what? I am going to get directly into that because you are 100% correct. I was incredibly overactive. So as I talked to Jared, I asked him, I was finishing my second mesocycle. So I was going into the period of 5 weeks out. Yes, because then I said, Jared, I'm overreached right now. I can feel it. I feel terrible. My weights are good, but I just don't have any motivation to train. Should I just go into the next mesocycle and instead of a 3-week overload and a peak week, do a 5-week overload, but start at just at your adaptive volume? and move in because my minimum adaptive volume is fairly low. It's around 10, 12 sets a week, depending on my muscle group. And he was like, no, don't do that. Deload.
Yeah.
And I was like, thanks, Jared, you're the best. Yeah, right. And so I did. And I dropped all my sets to 6 sets a week. And what I did was I do a push-pull legs, push-pull legs. I break it into 6 days a week training. But what I did was I kept I just basically took an extra 3 days off. So I did 6 sets a session, the same style that I would before. And I did I took Sunday, Monday off of that week. I took Tuesday, and then I did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday all together. Friday was my leg day, and then I took Saturday, Sunday off as well. And the first 2 days were good, and my diet, I was really, really hungry during this deload, and I don't know why, but the hunger kept getting a lot worse, and I would have expected that with my decrease, because I decreased my cardio a little bit as well, just because an extra 15 minutes of cardio isn't going to make or break a diet during a deload, right? So I said, I'm going to try to lower everything a little bit, lower and just take it easy, actually recover. And the reason I took the 3 days instead of the 6 days with smaller volumes method was I wanted to get more time to work on the house. So I got some more work done. I got completed. I finished my basement renovations at that time, and then I started to work on my upstairs renovations. But as it progressed through the week, Thursday, I was so hungry at points, it almost made me sick. And it got really bad. And I was like, you know what? This is definitely what people talk about, because you always see these people the hunger is just killer. And I was like, this is expected. This is what I thought. I was like, I've never been this lean before. I was very lean at this point. I was like, this is normal. This is a normal feeling. This is what bodybuilders go through. This is what everybody goes through. This is normal. Mm-hmm. And I just had to tell myself that in my head to try to keep a positive mindset about it, because I find that's very powerful to be able to stay positive in these things, being like, this is normal. So I got some psyllium husk, and I started drinking some of that to help fill me up. I got on the xanthan gum craze, all that. Yeah. So, that stuff just basically to help me feel full. But it only made it worse. Why? I don't know. But I will get into that after I discuss the rest, actually. So Friday, last Friday, was my cracking day. I could not control myself any longer. It got to the point that I did my training in the morning. This was during my deload. It was my leg day. I should have done leg day on Wednesday. I should have, because then it wouldn't have been so bad. But you know what? I'm really happy that I did crack. And I'll tell you why. I had some bread. And it wasn't a lot of bread. It was a slice of bread that was a heel. It was just plain white, sourdough bread. And it was the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. It was at work. I had all my meals left for the day. I had 4 meals. Like I said, 3/4 of my calories. And I knew that food was there. But I ate and ate and ate the bread. I ate scones. I ate chocolate. And I just couldn't stop. It was I can't explain it. As I said to you before, I've never encountered a primal urge that strong, except for the feeling that I would get between a man and a woman. That primal urge you would get sometime, it's wow, she's beautiful, and you have an attraction to somebody, and it's you almost, when you fall for somebody, it's just you can't control it, right? It's
you can't really explain it rationally, right?
Exactly. And it's you can't control who you love or who you like. I had that same feeling towards hunger, and I need to eat. And eating didn't stop it. I was so bloated and felt sick at work that I didn't think I was going to be able to finish my shift. I, in fact, got up. My significant other, she was traveling for work for 5 weeks, as I mentioned before. And she got back and she was home and she was hungry. And I said, listen, we need to order pizza. I was like, we need to. I was like, something's going on. I need to realize this, because I tried to intellectually think about what was going on. Coaching myself, I always have to analyze what's going on, right? Like, why am I doing this? And I had to look at myself the same way I would look at one of my clients and take an outside bird's eye view of why am I cracking right now? Because I realized it was happening. So I said, okay, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to get it out of my system. So I ate, and I ate about 4,500 to 5,000 calories in one day. Just in an 8-hour period. Because I already had just that morning fast, right? I had one meal, and that meal was like 400 calories, and the rest was just like, blah. But yeah, I killed it. I ate some Domino's pizza. I had a couple of glasses of wine with my girlfriend. Yes, everybody, I drank wine on show prep. It happens. But, you know, but here's the thing. Once I weighed in 175 on Thursday, and then I said, something's wrong. I need to eat at maintenance calories. Just track my protein and intelligently track my calories, because I'm so used to tracking my calories now that I know exactly, like, I can look at something and be like, okay, look at the macros. I can have so much of this, just eyeball it out and monitor my weight and stuff. So I said, I'm not going to step on a scale until I'm done, which was Saturday, Sunday, and then I was going to weigh myself on Monday. So I expected on Monday to step on the scale and be like 176, 177. You know, as we talked before, super like compensation of glycogen, water, stuff like that. And the last 2 days of the deload, as I mentioned, I had completely off. I weighed in on Monday. I was 168.75 pounds. I had lost 6.25 pounds after a binge and after 2 days of eating at maintenance. So I deducted the only reason that this could possibly occur was due to super high levels of stress.
Absolutely.
I was just holding water. And this week, the hunger's there, but it's like before it was a 12 out of 10. Now it's a 2. And the way I've adopted things now as well, I have, as I mentioned, I'm lean enough now. I'm at the goal that I wanted to be, and I look pretty good for being on stage. In fact, I might even be a little bit too much lean. So I basically have those 2 high days a week, 3,000 calories, 500 grams of carbs. Yeah, everybody. Last couple of weeks, right? Next week, I plan on basically adding in another high day and taking a low and adding it to a moderate. I'll still be in a deficit, it just won't be crazy. So my calories will go from an average of, say, 2,400 a week to like 2,600. But I'm still in a deficit. I'm still in a deficit on the average of the week, but I just have more food. I feel so much better now. It's crazy. So the next while, I'm basically just focusing on training, super high volumes, like 12, 15 reps for most stuff, still linear, still overloading, still doing all of the goods, but I'm focusing on recovery. I'm focusing on increasing my fats as well. If I'm feeling a little bit better, I increase my fats. So my low carb day, I'm actually eating like 140 grams of fat. And it feels great. Yeah, right? 60 grams of carbs, 150 grams of protein. My protein's actually really low right now, and I'm focusing on carbs and fat. So I'm doing the 0.85 grams per pound, just to give me a little bit, because that's plenty. We discussed that in the first video. It's plenty. You know, for me, 175 pounds, eating 140 to 145 grams, 150 even, fine. 100% fine. But more carbs, more fats, it's making me feel better. So what's better? More protein or being able to feel better, nail my diet, and get more training intensity and volume?
Exactly. And this is what I'm also doing with a couple of my clients to actually lower the protein intake to then allow for a higher carb intake so that they can go out and train harder, because resistance training is actually the most important thing to retain muscle mass, and then protein comes, right? And if your training is suffering, you can eat all the protein in the world, you will lose muscle mass then, right?
100%.
But I wanted, before we dive into the next upcoming weeks and the strategies, I wanted to go back to your, let's say, cracking the binging day, because it struck me as really an interesting aspect of how you approached it.
Mm-hmm.
Many people fall into that vicious cycle then. They immediately regret the decision of overeating and regret everything they've did on that given day and try to compensate because they are in such an emotional state. And for me, it brought up the question of, first and foremost, how did you deal with that situation emotionally? And how were you able to actually switch between the coaching yourself and being an athlete? Because being in such an emotional state could then kind of blend it together and making rash decisions, right?
Completely. I consider myself an extremely analytical person. I love data. I love analyzing. I love figuring things out. And like, I'm super problem solving oriented. And I think that's what really took me towards a lot of the coaching stuff. And it's why I love the Revive Strongers like Broderick Chavez stuff, because he's such a data freak, right? And like he loves it. And like the 5 questions thing that he mentioned in one of the videos, I get 100 every time I watch. In fact, I've recently started like monitoring my blood pressure and my blood glucose levels and like my oxygen blood levels, just because I love it. Like, it's so cool. So for me to look at this, I didn't do it from a personal mind. I did it from a data mind. Like, I realized, take the emotion out of it. The reason I ate was an instinct, not an emotion. I think those two are very different things. So once I was able to ask myself the question, and I asked this question already while I was doing it, I said, why am I doing this? Figure it out. By the end of the day, I'd figured out, like, I've done too much. What are the possible answers and outcomes to doing too much? You're going to have to relax for a little bit, which is what I did. I took those extra 2 days and I said, you know, I need to de-stress, deload. I need to get everything out. And that was the right answer, because the whoosh happened. And then I said to myself, you know, I dropped 6 pounds in 3 days. And when I stepped on the scale that morning, I was like, what? Like, but I said, okay, so out of that period, I said, how do I avoid this? All right, so before I started tracking my food better style of diet, increasing my calories, and I started tracking my steps. So I went into the gym and like did my day, and then on Tuesday I went to work, which was this week. And I said, you know, I need to start tracking my steps to figure out how much I'm actually doing. Now, the device I'm using doesn't track stairs, it tracks steps. Stairs are more intensive than steps, but I don't do any extra calculations to kind of like figure this out. It's not necessary. On the Tuesday, it was a slow day at work. I don't track my steps during cardio because it's separate. I put that in my FitnessPal sort of thing. But I pulled in 17,500 steps in one day without cardio, and that was a slow day. So I looked at my cardio, 450 calories. I looked at my calories consumed, 2,150. My BMR is 1,850. And then like on top of that, I was doing I think I burned like 800 calories from distance walked, like healthy pace, etc. And I was like, whoa. My deficit was just over 1,500 calories a day. No wonder this happened. But the thing is, there's a variability that I couldn't track before, which was work. There'll be busy days, there'll be slow days. But what I did notice as well during the data, because I store all this, I track my sheets, and like I have like stress levels, hunger levels, ratings of 1 to 10 on everything, because data freak. But I'd like to be able to analyze this. And what I noticed was that Thursday, Friday, Saturdays were the busiest, but Fridays and Saturdays were also the days of the week that I was hungriest. Mm-hmm. Now, I didn't know why, and like I kind of just expected that to be the way it was, but I would assume that on Sunday, Monday, when I'm off work, I didn't have that extra steps. They were probably half the amount of what I was doing. My body had to be able to recover a little bit and delve into, a period that I felt a little bit better. But then the darkness came in during the end of the week, and it came to a, like I said, breaking period. But you don't want to be in this late of a stage in prep in a 1,500 calorie deficit or more. In fact, the busy days, I would assume I'm doing about 20 to 22,000 steps, and I was probably in a 2,000 calorie a day deficit with the intensity of the running. Whereas like on Tuesday, it's more of a let's walk over here, let's walk over here. But on the weekends, I actually break a sweat at work. So the intensity is higher with the steps and all of this as well. So yeah, of course I broke. You know what I mean? And that's a crazy, crazy deficit. In fact, if I had a client and they were like, I'm in a 1,500 calorie deficit, I'd be like, are you insane? Like, take the feet off the gas a little bit, right? Like, oh my God. But you know what's, I think about this as a positive as well. I cracked and I did all this, but it allowed me to figure out a way to monitor myself better, to track myself a little bit better. And then on top of that, I found it a better way to diet for me because I feel a lot better. And the analogy of a lot of things is, you can't appreciate the light without the darkness. Mm-hmm. And last Friday, that 4-week break, that week was, now that I look back on it, it was hell. And this week, I'm still in a deficit. Like I said, like I'm only eating 300 more calories a day on average. But man, do I feel better. But if you had to put me in this position today that I was 16 weeks ago and hungry like this, I'd be like, oh, I feel miserable because you just start. So like I basically went like this and like hunger went up and went, rah, right? But here I am at that 4-week break period, and here I am right now. But this and this are two worlds different. But I think it would be the same as if it was this and this at like 16 weeks to now, you know what I mean? So yeah. I still feel hungry all the time, but I don't cheat. No, easy peasy. Like, you know what I mean? And it's been great. In fact, I've been able to, my high carb days, I still get a lot of really big meals because I'm still eating a lot of vegetables, those filling like foods. But I'm able to throw in like 300 grams of potato with spinach and like tomatoes and stuff and have like a scramble and really enjoy things. And then I actually get to have a treat at the end of the day. This is going to be sacrilege. On Saturday, when I get home, I actually have s'mores that I'm making. Because I can the 3,000 calorie a day, I have all my meals, and I looked at it, I was like, am I going to be full? Yes. I had 80 grams of carbohydrates, 20 grams of fat, and like 10 grams of protein left. It's like, what am I going to do? I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a Reese's peanut butter cup, I'm going to take a marshmallow, and a couple of graham crackers, and I'm going to make 4 s'mores. And that was it. I'm able to do that now, but I'm still going to lose weight because I'm more intelligently doing things. And, it's allowing me a better way to diet. And it allows me to have that treat now. And what I've planned to do as well is, since I'm able to have these fulfilling foods now, I think that in my post-diet phase, it's going to allow me to, have these rewards now, but maybe post-diet, I'm not going to want to binge as much. Because people that binge, or like I said, more, less, they get to that last day and they're like, I'm free. You know what I mean? Kind of like I was on Friday. But I think right now, as I'm eating more food, up to maintenance basically, that by the time contest comes around, I'm not really going to have those crazy cravings anymore like that I did before. So I'm kind of excited to see how that turns out. And obviously I'm going to track my data as it goes along. Maybe these rewarding foods are making my cravings worse. I'm obviously going to get rid of them, obviously. But that's a story for later down the road once I'm able to analyze and look at it more logically. Because right now I don't have the data to support this, but so far it's been going very well.
Man, I just love everything you've just said, especially the big takeaway, I think, for most people is there how to approach like something like a binge or overeating or going off board. It's not that you should kind of demonize everything that happened or kind of trying to compensate that, what most people are doing, like next day slashing the calories even more, compensating with a lot of cardio. And what you've did was to simply accept that it happened, get back on track, analyze what was the root cause for why it did happen in the first place, and then try to actually take care of it in the future, which you've did, and now you found out what is actually working better for you. Moving forward, this could then prevent that something like this will happen now during your contest prep, and especially post-show, because this is where most people struggle, and we just see it with so many competitors. Once the goal is gone and everything is over, they fall into that whole, that depression state, right? That what's it called? The post-competition blues.
Yeah.
Where there's no goal anymore. Like all the shackles are gone now, and you are free to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And this is the hard time where it actually is then that the hunger kind of increases because your metabolic system gets increased, more food is coming in once again, and it's like a furnace, right? It's then so hard to control yourself. But now that you've went through something like that binge, and you analyzed it and you came up with a strategy to cope with such a situation, I think you are now more prepared for the post-competition as well.
I agree.
Right? And now with the strategy moving forward into the show, you can actually eat into the show because you said it yourself. You're looking already really good, kind of ready, even a little bit too lean. Yeah. And now you can actually eat into the show. And on that regard, there's one more thing that interests me, because you said that Jared Feather is helping you with your peak week. What is your approach about the peak week? What are you going to plan there? And the competition date itself, I mean, what are you...
It's the 11th of November, so that is quickly approaching. We're just going to do something very simple, very light. Men's physique guys, don't need to do anything crazy. And, I've discussed this with, in fact, I've done a couple of interviews recently. I did one with Cliff Wilson as well. And, me and Cliff really delved into peak week, stuff like that, because that's very much what he's known for. And, one size doesn't fit all for everybody when it comes to peak weeks, Cliff's rapid backload would not work good for a men's physique guy. You don't want to be striated. You don't want to be like super full, and you just basically want to go in there and look healthy. Yeah. You want to look healthy. You want your muscles to look full. You want to you don't want that crazy separation, because men's physique guys, we get docked down for that. So, just a minor deplete. Minor, nothing crazy, not going to cut calories, probably just going to, fat deplete, and then just a slight front load. That's it, like a light peak. Don't mess with my sodium too much. Keep the water pretty steady throughout. Dehydrating is quickly dying. Like the whole, like, you know, everybody needs to drop crazy amounts of water, and, you know, it's been proven over and over and over. It's just taking a really long time for the industry to adopt it. I believe John Meadows, you know who John Meadows is? Mountain Dog. He's a amazing bodybuilder, and he just did a video on it. You know, it's like, this is backwards. You know, you drop your salt, your aldosterone levels just go crazy, and your blood sodium stays the same. There's no point to drop salt. You know, it just basically is messing with your whole inter-body chemistry, and it makes things worse. And then, like, you dehydrate, and it's like, you can't control where the water goes. Muscle is made up primarily of water. So is subcutaneous. Like, fat is there too. Like, if you're holding water, like, you need to hold water. Your body needs water. Like, if your muscles, you can't control where it goes. Anyways, I could rant on that all day because
totally agree.
Minor lowering protocol, something super simple, but the reason that I got Jared to do this is because I need to take it out of my hands. I know, like, I was talking with him since week 8. We've been back and forth, but you know, the breaking period is a very good example of why. Because if I really want to go for it this year, as I mentioned off camera, I want to give it my best shot. I'm competitive. And the last week, I need to be able to be an athlete instead of being a coach. I can't coach myself for that, because if I think I'm overcompensating, undercompensating, and doing all of these things incorrectly, then I could destroy my chances. I could come in and look terrible with a bad peak week protocol, or like I look and I'm like, oh my God, I'm flat. I need to eat more carbohydrates. And then all of a sudden I spill over really poorly and I just look terrible. Or I come in looking flat and grainy and not looking good at all because I didn't carb up enough, you know? And this is something that I need Jared for to tell me, this is what you need to do. We're going to look at some pictures of you show day. We're going to adopt this. You need to do this. It's not me thinking about it, because I don't want to think rashly and make a bad decision. And everyone knows that peak week can be a lot of mind games, especially seeing all the competition, especially these other things. And I think it's just wise for me to take a step back and say, you need to be an athlete for this week. You need to not be a coach. You need to listen and do, instead of having it listen, analyze, figure out a solution to the problem. Like I said before, the keep it simple, stupid method, right? Like, I need to keep it simple to be able to do, so I can de-stress as well. I want to get my cortisol down that week. You know, you want to stress a little bit less. You want to enjoy the process. You know, obviously I was holding a lot of water from all that stress, from the diet and stuff like that. My body wasn't adapting. The adaptations were there. I just couldn't see them because obviously I was holding water and all these other things were going on. But I can't take that into peak week. I need that week to be able to de-stress and go on stage and look the best. And by doing that, I'll have more chances of taking home a trophy. So,
mate, you just said everything and covered everything I wanted to actually talk with you about. Also, in terms of the binging and then the after effects of it, 3 days afterwards, that you dropped 6 pounds. It just goes to show that when you're in a stress state, that you're holding a lot of water weight. And yeah, in the peak week, you want to reduce it as good as you can, as best as possible. And I know that you're not going to work 4 days out.
Yeah, it's like 3 days out. I'm gonna, because once I get that tan, I can't really be in the public eye serving food. You know, they'll be like, "Hey, who's this guy from the Willy Wonka factory?" You know.
But also because you want to actually reduce the stress, right? Just want to go home, do some Netflix and chill, so that you are then setting yourself up to be the most successful on competition date as you can be. and all else is out of your control then. But all the variables you can control, you want to control, right?
Oh, anything I can control, I want to control. In fact, like the home renovations are scheduled to be finished this Sunday. That's a lot off my plate. You know, a lot of other things are finalizing that are like outside stressors. Even though the renovations are, I found, really good, but there was a date that I needed to finish them by, which was the end of this month. As it quickly approached, that started to cause me stress as well. So I was like, am I going to get it done in time? I can't find the hours in the day now. Like, oh my God, oh my God. So once that gets done and like, you know, peak week's taken care of and I don't have to focus as much on all these other things, I can find more time to relax, and I plan on doing so.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm going to do some more yoga, which I find is super relaxing. That'll just help me de-stress. You know, take that time to yourself, that like 1 hour a day to relax, not go. And I think the adaptations over the next 3 weeks are going to come in quick and furious. And to be honest, I think my peak week is going to go very successfully, and I will 100% bring the best package I've been to date. In fact, like I looked better at week 8 this year than I did on stage last year. So for me, even if I don't bring home a trophy, and this is something about mindset as well, the power of like looking at things objectively. And I have already beat the pants off what I've done the first 2 years of competing. That is in itself a trophy for me. Like, it's not about beating everyone. It's about beating your last effort. And if I was running a 5K race, my time would have increased by decreased by 50%. Like, I am over the moon with what I've accomplished in this prep, as well as the last off season. And even if I leave without a trophy, I'm still going to be happy. And that's something I think a lot of people need to focus on as well. A lot of people focus on, you know, I need to get that. And bodybuilding isn't a team sport. It's a one-person sport. And you're really only competing against yourself, because you can only make so many changes in a year. You can only make so many changes in 5 years. Even if it's perfect, even if you make the most optimal changes every single year, there's only so much you can accomplish. And I think people really need to realize that, you know, it's a game with yourself, and you go on and you do it, and the show is the goal. You get up to look good yourself. You take home a trophy, that's an added bonus. You win the overall, that's an added bonus. But the end of the day, you just need to improve. Because if you're not improving, then why are you doing it?
Henry, I think those are the best ending words for the show here today. People, so you can take a lot from it, I think, and especially when it comes to the mental aspect about why to compete, how to compete actually, and why you're doing it in the first place. And also you want to enjoy the whole process, because it's a long-term thing. It's not, you don't want to look back in hindsight and regret everything you've did in the past. You want to actually enjoy the whole journey. And it sounds so esoterical, but it should be a journey, and a joyful journey, the 100%. Entire life. And it's a part of your life which you spend so much time with. Like, so much time goes into training and nutrition when it comes to bodybuilding in general, and it shouldn't really dictate your life, but more so complement your life and improve it in any kind of way. And yeah, I mean, Henry, it was such a pleasure. Yeah, and I'm really, really looking forward for 3 weeks, how you're actually doing. Right. And yeah, I'm pretty excited to see if you are able to actually take the trophy home with you or not. And yeah, going to be pretty excited.
It is, and it's the most stiff competition I've ever faced. So this is going to be a really good year, and I'm just excited now. So
absolutely.
But Pascal, thank you so much. This was actually probably one of my favorite interviews I've done. It's been super relaxed, and everything here, it just went great. And I really enjoyed this. It was a little bit fresh getting interviewed for once.
And I think also for the listeners of your podcast, it's really refreshing to hear what you're up to, the current state, also what's going through your mind, and what you have on your plate on a daily basis and all that kind of stuff. Getting to know you even better, so that they are actually following your podcast in the future even more because they get to know you.
Well, I think we accomplished a lot of that and got to go over a lot of really good things. But I will let you go now. We are just over our hour. So, yeah, thank you so much once again, ladies and gentlemen. Pascal, I'll post up your Instagram, where to find you, all your Revive Stronger stuff, where you can find this lovely gentleman. And all right, have a great day. I'm going to get to a client consult.
Perfect. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, bro.